of the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com.
Good morning to our viewers on our various social media platforms. Thank you for joining us as we present our first live virtual lecture on the life and legacies of Alexander Bedward, Shepherd of Augustown. We are streaming live on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/JNHT1, on YouTube at www.youtube.com/JNHT Jamaica, on Vimeo at vimeo.com/539249665, and also on Zoom, ID 874-39001-460 and passcode 558036. You can follow us on at JNHT Jamaica on Twitter, also on Instagram at JNHT1. Please visit and like our Facebook page. And if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can just hit that subscribe button now. This morning, you will be hearing from Mrs. Michelle Creed Nelson, Executive Director of the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, Mr. Dwayne Harris, the Public Education Officer, also here at the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, and our main presenter, Dr. Dave Goss, lecturer at the Institute of Caribbean Studies, the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. At the end of Dr. Goss's presentation, we will be taking your feedback, questions, and comments. At this time, let me invite Mrs. Michelle Creed Nelson, our Executive Director, to bring the welcome and opening remarks. Colleagues, viewers on the various social media platforms, Jamaicans with the diaspora, friends and staff of the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, visitors, a pleasant good morning. As an agency of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, the Jamaica National Heritage Trust takes seriously its mandate of protecting and preserving Jamaica's built and environmental heritage. Another part of our mandate at the Jamaica National Heritage Trust is to foster national pride about our heritage through public education. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought with it numerous challenges to focusing and delivering on this mandate. Nonetheless, the Jamaica National Heritage Trust has managed to find innovative ways to stay true to its various commitments. This event is one of those commitments, and we are most happy to present to you today this lecture on the Shepherd of Augustown, Alexander Bedward. It therefore gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the Jamaica National Heritage Trust's first virtual lecture. Indeed, this event is a most memorable and historic occasion since today marks the 100th anniversary of the arrest and imprisonment of the Shepherd of Augustown. Today we will delve into the life of Bedward and his philosophies and seek to emphasize the importance of preserving his legacy for future generations. I am confident that you will be engaged, informed, and edutained from today's presentation. I charge each person to share with someone, either a relative, friend, or colleague, 2 important facts about Alexander Bedward and the Jamaica National Heritage Trust. Pleasant viewing. As the agency with the responsibility to preserve, protect, and promote Jamaica's rich cultural material heritage, a host of these material heritage are designated heritage sites across the island that are showcased in the publication of our book. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust presents Jamaica Heritage in Pictures. You can purchase your copy while stocks last for only 1,000 Jamaican dollars by contacting the Communications Department via email at jnhtpublicrelations@gmail.com, or you can WhatsApp us at 876-897-6373, or you can give us a call 922-1287-8 or 922-3990 for further details on how to get your copy of this amazing book. Also, to our visitors who are exploring some place to go, please make sure you get your copy of this book. You can get your copy to see the various heritage sites that you can visit within Jamaica. I now invite Mr. Dwayne Harris, our Public Education Officer here at the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, to make his presentation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to speak to you this morning on several topics that I'm happy about. One, Alexander Bedward, a very important figure in the history of Jamaica, and to speak about the matter of heritage, as well as Augustone, my home community. Yes, I'm from Augustone, and no, I am not a Bedwardite or a descendant of a Bedwardite. My topic today is simply Bedward, Augustone, and heritage. What I will be looking at is the various tangible items that played a role in the Bedward story and how they have fared over the last 100 years or so. History is normally the focus of humans. Humans make history, but humans also interact with the natural world and man-made items. These become our heritage. They complement, that is to say, they complete what we know. Sometimes they give additional explanations about our past and give new insight and answer many questions, as we will see. Augustone is located in the community of, Augustone is a community located in the parish of St. Andrew. There's actually another Augustone in Bogwalk, St. Catherine, but our focus is the one in St. Andrew. It is said to be named in honor of Emancipation Day, which is the 1st of August, and that is why the community is named Augustone in memory of Emancipation Day, and it was a part of the Papine estate. It was said that former slaves, former enslaved people went to Augustone to settle. So it has been around for quite a while. And it is located in a valley between the Long Mountains to the west and the Dallas Mountains to the east, and several rivers and tributaries run through. Now we have a picture of Alexander Bedward, who is said to be born, we're not very sure. I've seen dates in 1838, 1849, 1850. We'll come back to that later, but for certain, he died in 1930. He grew up in Augustone, and Augustone became the center of his career and his ministry and his activities. So in the late 1880s, Alexander Bedward got a series of visions, and you will see that over time, a number of his activities were directed by visions. And eventually, in 1891, he was convinced of the visions that he got. And in December 1891, he started his ministry. And he started his ministry. Slide. He started his ministry at the Hope River, which he called the Healing Stream. This is what the Hope River looks like today, which is a shadow of its former glory. Now, the Hope River runs from the foothills of the Blue Mountains through Gordontown, Papine, and along Augustone out to Harborview, where it goes out into the sea. But in December 1891, Bedward started his ministry there. He started preaching and baptizing. And he claimed that according to his vision, just as how Jesus turned water into wine, he was commissioned to turn the water of the Hope River into medicine. Hence, he called it the healing stream. This water was used to baptize people. In addition to that, the place was used as a meeting place for fasting, among other things. So as we are in this pandemic now, and we have all sorts of problems and concerns, one can only wonder what would Bedward do with the water from Augustone today. Is the solution to the pandemic in the healing stream? But whatever we think, was it the Holy Spirit? Was Bedward a con artist? Was it hydrotherapy? Whatever it was, people at the time were convinced that healing actually took place. And as a result of that, people flocked to him and to Augustone to receive healing. People were healed from all sorts of things, yaws, sore, spiritual problem. And the water was often blessed by him and bottled and sold. So in a sense, we could say Alexander Bedward of Augustone was a pioneer in the bottled water industry. in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, medical attention was limited, very little medicine, etc., medicines and medical professionals. And as a result of this, many of the poor were unable to access medical treatment. So Bedward's coming and his ministry through the healing stream was actually a godsend, so to speak, and people flocked him. But where exactly did the baptisms and the healing took place? I have been told by persons who were around at the time, or small children, that it took place in the river. Some people said it was at Bury. Bury is a spring that is practically in the riverbed of Augustone. You see this massive stone on the screen, which indicate that is what we call Bury in Augustone. It's a big stone, maybe like 12 feet high or something like that. And at the bottom of the stone is a spring. The water literally comes out of the rock. So much so that when I was a child, I thought that was the rock that Moses struck and that water came forth of, and it still runs out. Now, we don't know if it's the regular, it runs out into the Hope River, but we are not sure exactly if it was at the foot of Bury or further, but it doesn't matter. We know it was the Hope River that was the healing stream and the center of Bedward's ministry. Now, following Bedward's arrest and detention in 1921, 100 years ago today, baptisms did continue with his grandsons who eventually took over. But after a while, by the 1940s, 50s, fewer and fewer persons were baptized. And as a result of that, because there were less persons entering the church began to decline. And it's fair to say that the church has died with so many of the members dead. So the healing stream actually drew the anger and the attention of the medical establishment, who dismissed him as a fraud and said that he was deceiving the poor, ignorant masses of Augustone and indeed Jamaica. And so this was a big thing. Actually, in as early as 1895, there was a Gleaner article on January 24, 1895. Somebody wrote in the Gleaner, "It will be gratifying intelligence to the public that the firm actions of the authorities in arresting Bedward has a most salutary effect. The Mona water fraud has received its death blow." This was the anticipated of its leader. So in 1895, Bedward had some legal problems, and people were celebrating because they were saying he's a fraud using the river to deceive people. But we see that after 1895, the numbers grew exponentially. But after Bedward, as I say, the number of baptisms by the church declined. And of course, the water was used for different domestic and other purposes. Every real boy from Augustone has been to the river to swim at least once. And indeed, other churches, right up until the 1990s and perhaps into the new millennium, other churches began to use the river for baptism. So as a child growing up in Augustone, it wasn't strange for a Sunday morning to hear people going to the river beating drums and tambourine, the churches that we consider to be revivalists, going down to the river to be baptized. And these were not churches from Augustone, they were from all over the country who were being baptized there. But it was not just what we would call these fringe churches that were being baptized there. I have witnessed the Roman Catholic Church in Augustone having a baptism. One Saturday morning, we were told about this, and I went to witness it not only because the Roman Catholic Church is an established church, but because we were always told that the Roman Catholics sprinkled instead of baptized, and so we actually went. So the point is, it has been used since Bedward for baptism. Today, the Hope River is a shadow of itself. In the 1950s, the Mona Reservoir was built, and much of the water was rerouted via an aqueduct and that sends the water from the Hope River into the Mona Reservoir. And so, you know, we don't have as much water. There is actually the overflow that continues into the river. Then, of course, there is pollution and many other problems. In addition to that, Bedwood has been condemned. Water still flows, but because of the presence of so many pit latrines around it, it is no longer safe for drinking purposes. But the water looks very nice, very clean, very, very pretty. In 1894, Bedwood received the vision to begin to have a physical church, and so he established a temple. And so he built this from the sand, with sand and stone from the river, Hope River, and it was said to be built on lands belonging to his wife. In addition, the church was said not to have any steel or any center columns. We'll come back to that later. It was 50 feet wide and 109 feet long. It was a two-story structure, which is very interesting. Even after 100 years after, none of the churches in Augustown today, and there are several, have two-story buildings. To be built in Augustown, or maybe any place near Augustown. It had 24 arch windows, 5 arch doors, and inside there were 8 wooden beams which held up the balcony. No church in Augustown today has a balcony. And it was built in, as I said, in a general area where Bedwood called it Union Camp. Right, so it was the headquarters for his church, not just for Augustown, but several branches across Jamaica and in Panama, Costa Rica, as well as Cuba. So it was organized in 1894, and it was actually completed in 1905. But as we will see, and that is a closer look at the stonework and the year that he got the vision to start it. However, we see that by 1951, the church was damaged. Well, by 1907, it was damaged by the earthquake. And by 1951, with Hurricane Charlie, it was totally destroyed. The roof collapsed and pretty much it was damaged. So what eventually happened was that the wood and many of the things were brought to the side, and a small shed was built, and that's where the faithful continued to worship from the 1950s up until the 1980s, when that shed too was destroyed. And so by the this is inside the church. People actually play football in there now, sacrilege. But we see that by the 1980s, this is Bedward's house. It was along the side of the church. It actually, from the veranda, you could see the church close by, but it's no longer in existence. It has been demolished for development. But the church, Bedwood's church, and the wider community around it was a commune. The people there came together and worked. They found jobs. They had skills. People did farming, tailoring, baking, dressmaking, shoe repair, and a number of other things. They washed and a number of things. And so they earned a living. So it was not just a spiritual movement. People found work and so forth at the church. Right. Today in Augustown, the area where the church is known as Churchyard. And in 1999, the Jamaica National Heritage Trust declared it a national monument. 100 years ago, Bedwood was brought to the courthouse, and this courthouse was in Halfway Tree. He intended to march to Kingston, but it was diverted to Halfway Tree Courthouse. So 100 years ago today, this place was a buzz of activity with the arrest of Bedwood and his many followers who decided to march with him. Right. Now, of course, he was no stranger to the court system. And I would say every true revolutionary has had an acquaintance with the court system. In January 1895, Bedward was arrested on charge of sedition, and he was brought to the court, and he was sentenced to a lunatic asylum, but he was released on technicality. So they were after Bedward from the 1890s, not just 1921. So this is what the courthouse looked like, on the day, with a number of persons. Well, that's what it looked like in 1901, same building, and that's what it looked like on a day. The courthouse itself actually has a history of its own. It was completed in 1807. That's over 200 years ago. It was completed in 1807 and actually replaced a courthouse which was there in a half a tree before. And of course, the court system is an arm of the government. And at the time, the government was a colonial administration. So essentially, the courthouse was there to reinforce white power. And so it was at the courthouse, vestry meetings were held. When I say vestry meetings, I mean the precursor to the current local government system. They actually met literally in the vestry of the Anglican Church, and it was moved eventually to courthouses and other places. And so it was also the place where former enslaved persons received their certificate of freedom. And by the 1920s, after Bedwood was tried there, a new courthouse was built in half a tree, and as a result of that, it was no longer used for court. In World War II, it was used as the Imperial War Censorship Building, and eventually after World War II, the Junior Center used it, the National Dance Theatre Company used it, and in 1985, it was repaired and it was declared a national monument by the Jamaica National Heritage Trust. I am told that it is now used for Sunday school by the St. Andrew Parish Church, which is just right next door to it. Right, so on October the 8th, 1930, Bedward died peacefully at the Bellevue Hospital. And I'm very happy to say this because as a child growing up, we heard that Bedward attempted to fly and died as a result of injuries he sustained from this. I often heard a broken neck, but we are told that he died peacefully at the Bellevue Hospital in 1930. And so he's buried, yes, the slide is right, at Duppy Lane. We in Augustown call the street Duppy Lane, but if you write a letter to there, it won't go there because that's not the formal name. It is actually Bryce Lane, and it's a real place. So the Bedwood Cemetery is on Bryce Lane. We grew up calling it Burying Ground. That's what we call it, but much, much later, it was rechristened appropriately, the Bedwood Cemetery, and it was actually lands that the church acquired for this purpose, to bury its members, right? So Bedward was actually buried beside his wife, Elizabeth, who predeceased him in October 1930, exactly 1 month before him, right? Now, the Bedwood Cemetery is closed. Now, and this is what it looks like. It's actually overgrown. It never used to look like this back in the 80s. The cemetery, interestingly, was a busy place because it was a shortcut from Bryce Hill Road to Manley Avenue, named after Norman Manley, and people would pass through night and day. So it was a busy place in addition to being a burial ground. But as I said, over time, things have changed. Now, right. So this is actually Bedward's grave as it exists now. This picture was taken last year. And as a child growing up, it didn't quite look like this. It used to be higher out of the ground, and it had the shape of a barrel or a cylinder. You could actually sit on it almost like a horse. But over time, it has been going down. Now, and this, of course, is his wife, Elizabeth Bedward. No, the slide with Bedward's grave revealed that he actually was 82 when he died, which would put his date of birth to about 1849. So, in a sense, this tangible object is giving us some more specific clues on information that we are uncertain about. So by that we can establish that. But in addition to that, the headstone of Elizabeth Bedward also shows that she was older than him. She died at age 86. And as we said, she predeceased him 1 month prior to his own death. Right. So, in a sense, we're learning. Now, I've spent some time actually thinking about this Bedward phenomenon for a while. We have a picture of the screen on the screen here with, in 1996, that's me standing there looking at Bedward's tomb. But we can see last week when I went in 2021, you could actually see it is much lower. The problem is that where it was built is in the way that stormwater normally flows with all the debris and anything. So the grave actually appears to be sinking, or it is that the debris is rising. We actually had to dig our way through to find Elizabeth Bedward's headstone. And that in a normal scheme of things, that would be about 1.5 feet high. But no, it is practically covered. I went last week just to look at something again, and I couldn't find it. It is covered with debris, dirt, and silt. But Bedward is buried among his closest lieutenants and people bearing the names such as Burke and Mackenzie, and a number of other individuals who were closer to him. So those who were closer to him were buried nearest to him. Now, so how does Augustine remember Bedward? We see that Augustine honors Bedward with place names. One of the streets in Augustine has been named after Bedward, Bedwood Crescent. Many of the streets in Augustine are named after months of the year. May Lane, April Way, June Road, July Road, Augustine Road. But we have a Bedwood Crescent also in Augustine, to the bottom of Augustine. There is also a Bedward Gardens, which is across from Augustine proper, an informal community which has now been called Bedward Gardens. Many people still refer to it as Over the River or Simple River, but it's now named after Alexander Bedward, because that was where he conducted many of his fastings, etc., etc. And at the entrance of Augustine, and the JNHD assisted with this a number of years ago, there is a sign welcoming people to Augustine and educating the public about Alexander Bedward. Now, of course, in addition, we see a number of other things coming from Bedward in terms of people that are not necessarily complimentary. People originally from Augustine were mocked and ridiculed because of the fact that Augustine was the home of Bedward. And so, sometimes Augustine people are the butt of jokes, and many people assume that because you're from Augustine, you believe in Bedward, etc., etc. But it is not necessarily so. So, in closing, I would just like to appeal to us to pay more attention to the physical objects that reveal insights into our past. In addition to that, I am very disappointed to know or not to know of any physical item associated with the church, like a church bench or Bedward's Bible, even a foot of his shoes or his robe or anything that we can show people. Thankfully, he made a building that we can live, that we can see. And finally, I would say the biggest contribution of Bedward to Augustine was the increase in the population. Bedward brought attention to Augustine. A number of persons left from all over the island and came to Augustine and never returned home for all types of reasons. And as a result of this, the population of Augustine grew significantly. And of course, he contributed to this. And as a result of this, Augustine has been able to play its small part in the development of Jamaica. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you have been edified by this presentation on Augustine and its heritage, as well as Alexander Bedward. Thank you.
At this time, we will take a break and we will return in 2 minutes' time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has a legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com.
Welcome back, viewers, to this, our first virtual lecture. Before the break, you would have heard from Mr. Dwayne Harris, our public education officer here at the Jamaica National Heritage Trust. He did a very informative presentation on Alexander Bedward. There's a lot to be said about Alexander Bedward. To those who are just joining us, welcome. And thank you for joining us live on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/JNHD1, on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/JNHT Jamaica, on Vimeo at vimeo.com/539-249-665, and also on Zoom, ID 874-39001-460 with passcode 558036. You can also follow us on Twitter at JNHT Jamaica and also on Instagram at JNHT1. Please visit and like our Facebook page, and if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please hit that subscribe button right now. We would love to hear from you. So send us your text messages with your questions and comments, and we will definitely answer them at the end of Dr. Goss's presentation. The Reverend Dr. Dave Goss is a senior lecturer in the Institute of Caribbean Studies at the University of the West Indies Mona campus, and formerly taught numerous courses within the Department of History and Archaeology at the same campus. He is a graduate of the Howard University who has authored a book on abolition and plantation management in early 19th century Jamaica, 1807 to 1838, along with journal articles and encyclopedia entries. His recent book on Alexander Bedward is currently being peer-reviewed by the University of the West Indies Press. Dr. Goss is also the coordinator of the foundation course in the Faculty of Humanities and Education, Caribbean Civilization. He is the chairman of the Board of Management of the Arden High School and pastor of the Whitfield Town Church of God. Viewers, Dr. Dave Goss.
Thank you so very much. A pleasant good morning to you all, to the face-to-face audience, and also the online audience. It is always a pleasure as a researcher to be asked to share one's research. I therefore thank the Jamaica National Heritage Trust for this invitation to share. And also, I want to thank them as well for actually lending, allowing Mr. Dwayne Harris to walk me through the length and breadth of Augustown to understand the visual history and culture in tandem with what I was reading in the text, the various texts. I'm also grateful this morning to be sharing on Bedward this particular morning, April 27th, 1921, when Bedward and his over 600 members marched, attempting to go downtown in what is dubbed his manifestation. So the title for this morning then is the April 27, 1921 Arrest of Bedward and its Socio-Cultural Legacies. Who is Alexander Bedward? Most younger Jamaicans, when I told them I was churching on Bedward, they retorted, Alexander who? They have never heard of him. And even today, many young people don't even know about Alexander Bedward. Older Jamaicans, however, some remember Bedward humorously as the madman who tried to fly to heaven but failed. Other older Jamaicans remember him culturally through the association with folk songs such as Dip Them Bedward, Dip Them in the Healing Stream, and we'll just play a minute or so of this first one. Dip them Bedward, dip them in the Healing Stream.
Dip them Bedward, dip them in the healing stream, healing stream, and healing stream, and healing stream, and healing stream, and healing. Oh, dip them Bedward, dip them.
Technical difficulties there,
in the healing stream. Dip them,
but we'll get to it.
Dip them to cure bad feeling. Some come from the east like a big Lego beats. We got dip in the.
I think that particular one is I think known by many Jamaicans. So something we'll probably play towards the very end, if anything. But the other one that is also known by many Jamaicans is the one which says, "Sly mongoose, your name gone abroad." Let me see if this one will play this one.
mongoose, you never gonna bride. Slide mongoose, you never gonna bride. Mongoose get in a big coat kitchen, take out one of him big fat chicken, put it in a in left coat pocket. Slide mongoose, slide mongoose, you never gonna bride. Slide mongoose, you never gonna bride. Mongoose get in a big coat kitchen, take out one of him big fat chicken, put it in a in left coat pocket. Slide mongoose, slide mongoose.
The significance of Alexander Bedward. Why is this commemoration of Alexander Bedward manifestation a most important historical event for all Jamaicans to remember? Why remember a disgraced Jamaican who was sent to Bellevue in 1920 for lunacy? Let me make some important points here. Bedwardism was the most significant national movement of social defiance from the latter 19th century to the early 20th century. Bedwardism was that major bridge of colonial resistance in Jamaica from the Morant Bay War in 1865 to the return of Marcus Garvey in 1927 and the birth of Rastafari in the 1930s. So for 30 years, from 1891 to 1921, Alexander Bedward fought the colonial system successfully. Bedwardism was the largest organized black social political movement in Jamaica. Now, on their record, they have a membership of over 36,000 persons. Now, part of the reason for this is that they had what they call a floating membership. So their membership consisted of between 73 to 125 chapters across the entire island, but also persons from traditional churches who were baptized by Bedward, also pastors in other churches who were baptized by Bedward, and so on their roll, they have membership of over 36,000 persons locally. Not to mention, as you heard from Dwayne Harris earlier, chapters in Cuba and Costa Rica and Panama, just to name a few. So Bedwardism then shaped the social political history of Jamaica in the late 19th to early 20th centuries. And we won't go into the political thing this morning, but I must say to you then that a lot of the laws post-1895 that were passed in Jamaica resulted directly and indirectly from Bedward. We're talking about the lunacy law, obeah and vagrancy laws, the medical laws, preaching laws in towns and in places where preaching should occur. A lot of laws were shaped and formed because of Bedward. So Bedwardism, and Bedward in particular, was like ticks in the backside of the Jamaican colonial state, as witnessed in the direct and indirect legislation passed to neutralize him and his fellow revivalists across the country. Now we understand why Bedward then had to be arrested and placed in the asylum. So although the movement experienced decline post-1930, it inspired other African-led movements like Garveyism, Rastafari, and even the 1930s labor rebellions. Retired professor of history Reverend points out that no other church or religious movement at that time in Jamaica had a comparable range of social services like what the Bedwardites had. He built a self-reliant community of believers in Augustown and had a social welfare fund for all members in need. If you were to speak to people in August Town after 1930, the 1940s, 1950s, they'll tell you that the Bedwardites were the most important person who would find to work. They had a strong work ethic. They were fair, they were honest, they were decent, and they supported each other. Those are some of the work ethic and the values embedded by Bedward into Bedwardites even after Bedward was off the scene. The burial scheme, which was showed earlier by Mr. Harris, was also met the funeral expenses of members, especially the most indigent ones. Now, these initiatives were important in the absence of government welfare programs. Even some of Bedward's fiercest critics do state that if you became a Bedwardite and you went to Augustown, your material existence would be provided for. Right? So if the entire Jamaica came to Augustown, Bedward found the resources to provide for his people, and that's a significant movement in that time. Part of the cemetery which was shown, you saw it earlier, so I won't spend any time on that. Now, Bedward, therefore, then, was immortalized in the memory of ordinary Jamaicans. One visitor to Jamaica in 1966 recorded an inscription he saw on a wall at the end of Duke Street in the Kingston Harbor as he walked from his vessel. It reads, "During 1920, Jamaica knew two prophets, one called Bedward, who attempted to fly. He was tried and placed in an asylum. The other, ranked by far the most important prophet, was Marcus Garvey, who founded the UNIA movement that we all know about. But what is important here is the acknowledgement that although Marcus Garvey, in the minds of many Jamaicans, was a paramount prophet, Bedward was comparable to him, and this is what a visitor saw on his entrance, on Duke Street, coming off his vessel. So going therefore then to today, April 27th, 1921, Bedward motto was that I must march into Kingston. He summoned his followers to Augustown to prepare for this momentous march of April 27, 1921. He sent a messenger to the city to obtain permission to use the park for a public meeting, but that request was denied because as far as they were concerned, Bedward was public. Hundred men, women, and children, all dressed in white, with palm branches, gathered at their church yard and took to the streets of Augustown, singing "Onward, Christian Soldiers, going off to war," with the cross of Jesus going on before. This is a kind of a footnote, though. Bedward informed his members really that those who are not serious don't come, right? Don't come that day because they're going to war, right? And despite that, over 600 of his members attended. Is a picture now of the march, and if you look carefully, you can see that there are policemen surrounding. The march into Kingston came 4 months after the colonial newspapers misinterpreted his alleged flight to heaven on December 1920. And this is where the story comes now that he was waiting to go to heaven and they had a chair there for him to fly away and people all came down and it didn't happen. But as far as we are concerned, it was how the story was propagated in the colonial newspapers and elsewhere. But somehow, at the end of Easter, Bedward stated now that he was given marching orders by his Lord and Master for an event in the city of Kingston. Having just celebrated Easter, it seemed as if the memory of the historical Jesus' sacrifice on a cross seemed to have inspired Bedward for the moment to be now. Thank you. This momentous announcement that he and his followers would march into Kingston for a manifestation was clear to Bedward that he was provoking the colonial state and that he would suffer at the end. But what is important to note about the Bedwardites, that the symbol of the Bedwardite movement that was printed in their 1920 convention, and if you can see clearly, you'll see a crown, right, which represents a crown of glory. But embedded in the crown of glory is a cross. And once you are familiar with the Christian tradition of crucifixion, you will understand the point the Bedwardites are making. There can't be no glory if you don't bear the cross. And it seems clear to me that Bedward had made up his mind, along with many other members as well, that we are going to march, we are going to protest. Most famous statements, as you all know, about the black wall, rising and defeating, cutting down the white wall, and all of that. Clear sign of the intention of Alexander Bedward. Now, Police Sergeant Williams, who was sent to Augustine to persuade him not to march, Williams made the following testimony. He said that the night before the march, he and Inspector Williams went to Bedward's church to persuade him not to march, as he was sure that Bedward would be surely arrested. The sergeant wrote that a fervent prayer meeting was in session with an attendance of 400 to 600 persons. But Bedward was insistent that he had to perform his father's will, and he had to march, and he was going to march. Bedward remarked to the sergeant then. Bedward said, I must go. I must obey my father. I am the Lord Jesus Christ. Must I obey you and disobey the command of my father? The only way I do not take out the children, you must cut off my neck or kill me now. It is no good asking me not to go. I must take them out tomorrow. They can shoot me if they like, but I must. And then the report continued that Bedward now broke into a song, into a hymn. Me no care what Satan the grumble say. We are all going to glory. And with that, the congregation burst out in laughter, clapping their hands, singing, right, and stamping the floor, saying, we are all going to glory. The inspector and the sergeant therefore left. It was quite clear they would not persuade Bedward not to march. A female Bedwardite then, recalling the march then, she wrote as follows. When we reach Edie Hill in Hermitage, that is the hill now, if you guys know Augustine, the hill going up to near to the New Testament church on the left-hand side going to Hermitage, she saw a truckload of police passed and many people as well. When they reached Mona Gate near to the site of the current post office, Bedward said to them, children, keep on the left hand. When they reached Mandra Gate, which I am told is somewhere between University Front Gate or between the aqueduct, the police and soldiers who seemed to have slept all night in the bushes stopped them. They took Bedward away and two ministers in a car. Another Bedwardite, Theodore Skirvin, who at one time I think was the caretaker for the Bedwardite compound, he recalled the march as follows. Well, And we march out from here. And Bedward lead the bands and him walk from. I tell you, when I reached to right where the post office de Amona, there now, I remember and he was trying to run the van over me, but as I drop, I start roll. And by the time I get to the corner there, one man catch me hand, so wham. And him catch me right up and raise me up to the banking. The man them say, turn back, turn back. I said, before I turn back, self-identity as the black Jesus for the black race. Based on Bedwoodite tradition, a story is told by some of the Bedwoodites that Bedward somehow came to the realization that he was the black Christ. And to others that you are the black Messiah. And that's what he did. So by the night, and that's why you see some of the Bedwoodites were so resistant, because they, as far as they're concerned, this man was the black Christ. So this manifestation that I'm arguing then was a public declaration of God's impending judgment on Jamaica's unjust colonial system, a march of protest. Also a march of affirmation to the black race that God had sided with the black man and the black people, and he saw their oppression, and God will act in healing and vindicating the black race. Now that is a clear theme throughout the Bedwoodite and Bedward and his messages. Augustown, for many know, which was a sterile backward little valley, will become the new Jerusalem. We see what is happening here now. Augustown, black people who are minorities, marginalized, oppressed, God sides with them. And so it's a reversal of what is traditional colonial Christianity. A refuge to avoid God's judgment. Augustown, they will become this refuge to avoid God's judgment and the spiritual home of the black suffering and oppressed people. Bedward now then, to our Gleaner reporter, said this to our Gleaner reporter. He was the prophet crying in the wilderness of Jamaica for the injustice being done to his fellow black people. He was also Noah, the biblical character, because for years he had been preaching and not being heard. But when trouble came for Noah, there was no room for them in the ark. The white will soon find out that there will be no hiding place for them when judgment comes. Then he said, the white and the coloreds, they have tried to kill me, but they can't do it. I tell them, the day of reckoning is coming for them. The white people are the oppressors. This is a black man's country, and black people must rule it and live it. Clear sign of Bedward's interpretation of his role as the black Christ in helping black people at that time. So Bedward now then had developed a sophisticated theology, by the way, right? Where the idea was that the historical Christ is for the white man, the black Christ is for the black man, and he was the black Christ. Now, it is not new to Jamaica at that time, because even in North America, a lot of the prophets also expounded a black theology, a black liberation theology for its people, rereading the Bible from their perspective as black people. So, but what is interesting with Bedward though is that he saw then that Bedwardism then is the new age, the new religious age that God had ordained. Therefore then you had Judaism, followed by Christianity, and now Bedwardism. Even the very Bible, Bedward argued. From Genesis down to Jude speaks about the Jewish and the Christian race, but Revelation is about the Bedwardite race. You know, therefore, the 144,000 depicted in Revelation chapter 7, the 12 tribes of Israel, sealed, all dressed in white, represent the Bedouinites. That's why you saw the picture where the Bedouinites now are dressed in white, representing the people who are sealed. And all these three groups, both Jews, Christians, and Bedouinites, there's a place in heaven for all of them, right? But Bedouinism now is a more recent, revised version of both Judaism and Christianity. Highly developed theology. This man was no madman. This man was a brilliant man, right? A brilliant leader. Therefore then, his role was to ensure then, and therefore then, that the march therefore then was a sign therefore then that the end was nigh. That by this march he knew he'd be arrested. But that would now, in a sense, now usher in a new Bedouinite age as far as Bedward was concerned. You saw that picture there already about Bedward argued that Jesus turned water into wine as his first miracle, but his first miracle was to turn water to the healing stream, medicine for man. And that was said earlier by Mr. Harris. But they are seeing the correlation between Bedward and the Black Christ, how he reinterprets the Bible from their perspective. Now, the healing stream again was mentioned by Mr. Harris, but this how one Bedouinite described the importance of the healing stream. The fact that Bedward turned water into medicine. He said, some have lame feet, some have big pregnant belly, can't have no baby, and all those kind of things. But Bedward, he stood on a stone down the river there and he prayed. And after he prayed, people went into the water, drank a little, have their bath, and when they come out, they deliver a baby. They believe a bullfrog, bunglaff here, and all kind of things, and they get better. I understand that even snake came out of some of them, or them sore foot, and the foot healed up after that. After Bedward pray for the water, and anybody just can go in and they can bathe. People come down, even on their hammock. And that time come and go into the water and bathe done. Him get better, him can get up and walk and go home from Augustown. Some people walk all the way straight back to our country, walk back on him foot. After that one time had problems. Testimonial of Bedwardites and the importance of the healing stream, because Bedward was able to turn water into medicine. So as Jesus ministered for some 33 years or so, Bedward ministered as a prophet of Christ, and Christ for also over 30 years. The correlation between Bedward and the black and the white Jesus, As the historical Jesus was crucified by the colonial Roman Empire and Christianity emerged as a social cultural movement, so too Bedward, as the black Christ, will be crucified by the British colonial state, but Bedwardism now will further flourish and deliver the black race. Therefore, Bedward had to march, had to be arrested, had to suffer at the hands of the Jamaican colonial state. Moving on now then to the cultural impact of Bedwardism then. Now, the masses of Jamaicans immortalized Bedward as their hero in song and dance. Now, the song which we didn't play, we played that one, we played that one, Sly Mongoose, right? Now, the historical origin of that particular song seemed to have been what is called Slide Mongoose Slide, right? It had become a popular song and dance performed in the 1900s. Somewhere along the line, I think now, and I'm conjecturing here now then that later became Slide Mongoose, but it was originally Slide Mongoose Slide. They would have what they call a Slide Mongoose dance, right? Which immortalized Bedward as the hero and the British as the villain, right? So the British, they were seen as the thieves, because we all know the story of the mongoose, that the mongoose they were brought into Jamaica brought in Jamaica, and they became a pest all over the island, and the government had to find ways to get rid of the mongoose, right? And so the British now are the troublemaker, the thief, the pests, ripping people off, molesting people, taking away their, taxing them, overtaxing them. But Bedward now then was the hero now who challenged the British, and as a result, the song was immortalized in memory. Now, it's important to also note then that this thing called representation now. Normally, representation is normally done where the powerful give that image that is bought, purveyed to the masses. But this time it is the masses now who are interpreting who Bedward is. And that's why this idea of Slide Mongoose Slide. So when this song and dance was performed for local audiences in the 1900s now, there's this thing called, we said, the Mongoose Slide. That was very, very popular. One journalist in 1921, he was drinking at the Conda Spring Hotel, which I think today is Immaculate High School, I think. But he was drinking at the bar, and then he heard this enormous excitement in the auditorium and laughter. And he had to leave the bar to go to see what was happening. When he went to the auditorium, they were performing the Mongoose Slide. So they had a character as Mongoose. They had another character as Bedward. And Mongoose was sliding to evade Bedward, who was after Mongoose. And that is how the Jamaican local audience interpreted Bedward vis-a-vis the British, and therefore this thing about the Mongoose Slide. But this idea of run Mongoose run was also seen in advertisements as well, right? One part example, there was an agricultural show in St. Mary, and they were trying to promote a membership drive to get more members to be a part of this St. Mary's Agricultural Society. What did they do? They carried a live mongoose, and below they had this title, Run Mongoose Run, right? And then the other part of it said, if you can't run, then slide. If you can't slide, then walk. If you can't walk, then hop. If you can't hop, then limp. Clear sign of the ways in which the idea that mongoose had to run from Bedward was becoming so popular became popular in the memory of ordinary Jamaicans, that even for advertisement it was being used to promote different products. This is another advertisement again. They are promoting this thing called Digesto Vim, which can cure everything. So this is how they play the ad in the Gleaner. It says, mongoose broke into McKay's drugstore, stole a bottle of his famous cough cure. Run mongoose. Mongoose from indigestion suffered, which prevented him enjoying his supper. But Digesto Vim cured him. Slide mongoose. Mongoose, a corn on a big toe, which made him look very sad. Ideal corn cure made him glad. Run mongoose. Then come now then to Egbert McKay, druggist. This is the ad paste in the Gleaner. And there are many more ads like that now where they are using the concept now of the run mongoose run. Again, the duel between Bedward and the British. Quite clear in the minds of all the Jamaicans that Bedward is a man, you don't play with Bedward. Right? Bedward is a dangerous man. Right? A hero. The people's hero. And that's why he's now being immortalized in the local culture. Another journalist now writes this now then. He says, in 1937, he says, talk about the Africans now. He said, they came down from the hills and bush, bringing with them their handmade drums, which were beaten, not with sticks, but with their fingers and palms in a rhythm that was straight. You could tell these are Africans coming out of the bush. Then he says, they even dance for the Duke and the Duchess of Kent when the guests came to the island. They danced and they danced in the villages on Christmas, John Kuno, of course, through the streets, followed by horse-head set girls singing two important songs now, the Mango Walk and the Slide Mongoose Slide. Right? Clear sign again that by the 1930s, Bedward was immortalized in the local culture as a hero, a bad, dangerous man that you can't play with. If you play with him, you better run. That is how the people saw Bedward, to show the extent to which Bedward, therefore, then culturally was an important Jamaican nationalist in the eyes and memory of the ordinary Jamaican person at that time. Now, the social political impact as well, because I'm trying to come down as quickly as I can. Leonard Howell, for example, now then, one of the major founders of Rastafari, seemed to have been influenced also by the Bedwardites. Garveyite scholars such as Rupert Lewis and others, make this point. But an article by Professor Robert Hill, he argued that when Howell had his first Rastafari meeting, right, on the stage with him were many Bedwardites, right, and somehow the Bedwardites seemed to have influenced even Leonard Howell in the very early stage of the Rastafari movement. So scholars, for example, like Helen Lee, make the point that the sermons of both Bedward and Howell had a tone of arrogance and as a form of resistance against colonial culture. And if you were to read some of the sermons of Bedward and Howell, you think you're reading Bedward sermons because you could see the tone of arrogance about who I am, a clear affront to the colonial state representing the people, black people, and black culture generally. Then she makes the point that both leaders, both Howell and Bedward, were severely criticized and persecuted by the various arms of the state, both arrested and jailed and sent to the lunatic asylum. Right? Even Howell in his early ministry as well was also highly millenarial in that Howell at one time also predicted that time when Rastafari would come to repatriate his people. And you could see somehow now the kind of social political impact of Bedward and the birth and development of Rastafari. Robert Heinz now then, one of the celebrated heroes of the Bedouinite movement, was a convert to Rastafari, and based on the argument made by Barry Chavans, Robert Heinz became one of the premier early leaders of the Rastafari movement, even converting even more people to the Rastafari movement than even Hibbert and Dunkley, right? And even in his version of Rastafari, early believers had to be baptized, the same quarterly baptism that Bedward had. All those are part of the early rituals in the early Rastafari movement to show the extent to which Bedwardism influenced even Rastafari. So Heinz, in one of his trials in St. Thomas Court in 1934, made the point clearly that his biblical training in Bedwardism prepared him to easily accept Rastafari. All he was doing was to exchange Bedward as the Black Christ for Rastafari as the Black Christ. Easy conversion for him and also for many early Bedouinites as well. So he also argued that all Israelites in the Bible, by extension, were all Ethiopians. And it's an argument among blacks at that time, not only in Jamaica, but also in North America and other places. The blacks being black Jews and the Reverend to that. Heinz then traces knowledge of the Black Christ to his Bedouinite days. In response to the suggestion that it was Howell who told him that he was a Jew, Heinz asserted that he found the evidence in the Bible long before he met Howell. Heinz, who couldn't read, said to the court, he said, "The community from which I came, those people," he said, the Bedouinites, searched the Bible and they used a dictionary and they all concluded that black people were all Ethiopians. Therefore, my understanding of Rastafari being Christ even predates, about the Black Christ, even predates the teaching of Leonard Howell, the impact of Bedward and the Rastafari movement. Even the revivalists as well, the Bedouinite movement also influenced the revivalist movement in significant ways. One sociologist, Simpson, makes the point that there was a vow ceremony that some of the West Kingston revivalists used They said it was like an exact replica of the Bedwoodite vow ceremony that Bedward used, that was also passed down to some of the revivalists. But a point is also made that what I found very interesting now then, that Bedward now seemed to have empowered many of the other local revivalists, because that same tone of arrogance that Bedward showed to the colonial state it was also copied by many other revivalists, to the point where the colonial state were very much concerned about all the revivalists running all over the country, you know, preaching about black Christ and black nationalism. That's the impact of Bedward to a great extent. The ritual that Simpson speaks about is one that says, "Behold, the rich who lust and wine and washed his estate, he begged a share among the swine." You know, that part of ritual Simpson identifies as coming out of Bedward's playbook that was now used by other revivalists, especially the revivalists, people Revivalist 60, or what we would call Revival Zion, Revival 60. The Hope River, which was mentioned earlier by Mr. Harris as well, that many church groups now also now went to the Hope River for baptisms, you know. And they mentioned about the Roman Catholic Church as well, that even the Catholic Church members in Augustown went to the Hope River to be baptized, and along with many other churches marching early in the morning all the way to the Hope River to be baptized. So that I conclude then, we might not agree with Bedward's millenarial doctrines or doctrine, but whether you agree or not, much more honor is due to Alexander Bedward. Alexander Bedward must be celebrated as one of Jamaica's premier social leaders and placed on a similar stage with leaders such as Paul Bogle, Sam Sharp, and Marcus Garvey. Bedward was no madman. He was a brilliant and a strategic Jamaican nationalist who created a religious movement with social, political, and economic impact. Bedwardism had on its membership roll 36,000 members with chapters island-wide and also chapters in the international community. Right? One important qualities in Bedward's leadership is the spirit of boldness, a daringness, a figurative badness, or even madness. No, he had to be figuratively mad to willingly sacrifice his life for what he would call the salvation of the black race. Black nationalist leaders such as Bedward figuratively had to be insane to take on the colonial forces and its various auxiliaries. He had to be insane to create a viable alternate perspective other than the recommended colonial path that deemed blackness as culturally inferior and uncivilized. Therefore then, fellow Jamaicans, we remember this great Jamaican, Prophet Alexander Bedward. I thank you for listening.
The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monument heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com.
Welcome back, viewers. And wow, you must agree with me that this was indeed an informative and interesting presentation by Dr. Dave Goss. While you are sending in your questions and comments, if you can look out for our upcoming virtual staging of our annual Civil Emancipation Jubilee. That will be coming up on July 31. You can also look out for our virtual Heritage Month activities for this year. You can become a friend of the JNHD. We would love to hear from you. So send us a tweet at JNHD Jamaica, or on Instagram at JNHD1, or an email at jnhdpublicrelations@gmail.com. Or you can WhatsApp us at 876-897-6373. And we can tell you how you can become a friend of the JNHD. Coming to you very soon also is our virtual tour of our heritage sites. If you have a private collection or paintings or any form of artifacts that you would like to be restored, give us a call. Let us restore them for you. If you are planning or constructing a development on a heritage site, call us. Let us guide you and help you to get an archaeological impact assessment or a heritage impact assessment done. The JNHD is here for you. You may also visit our website at www.jnht.com for further information. I see that we have been getting comments, and the first one that came in is from Diana Shaw on Facebook, and she's asking, is there information on his economic ventures and how these sparked industries and land ownership amongst his followers? Also, will you discuss the impact of his movement on the development of Garveyism and Rastafarianism in Jamaica?
Thank you for those questions. Let me say first of all that there is a problem with, if you want to call it, sources in a sense. What we have on Bedward actually were written by Bedwardites, yes, but not Bedward himself, right? So I have not seen so far any information on economic ventures outside of Augustown. The goal was to create a self-sustained community, self-reliant community, by the way, in Augustown, right? Post after the death of Bedward, people continued that part of the scheme. I agree in my particular manuscript, though, that somehow, person like Leonard Howell, somehow, I think, in my mind, must have modeled pinnacle, in a sense, from what happened in Augustown. Because what he did in Augustown made it possible for people to think outside of the box, that black people can pool their resources together and help themselves, right? But that's the extent to which Bedward carried it at that level. I think Leonard P. Howell, now, from my reading and interpretation of it now, tried to copy that and to carry it to a much larger venture. And that's why you have Pinnacle. He tried it in St. Thomas. It didn't work in St. Thomas because the police clamped down on them. But I think that he tried it now in Pinnacle. So we have no economic ventures apart from persons performing their different skills to provide food for the entire community, which have become large, by the way, have become extremely large, that they'll provide food for people and their daily sustenance, right? But there's something about Bedward that is quite clear, that he knew how to plan and organize, how he was able to build a community of believers in a particular geographical spot. The cemetery and the opportunities meant that if he had time, to invest more, and if he probably didn't believe at that time that his work on earth had come to an end, more likely, would have probably seen much more of a Bedward in that sense. But I think that Howell, in a sense, I think copied and actually, I don't even word copied, but somehow influenced by what Bedward did and tried to make Pinnacle be what Augustown was probably meant to be. Now, in relation to your second question now then, that issue of Bedward's impact in both Garveyism and Rastafari now then, that is argued in the manuscript that I have written. So when a book comes out, Elaine, you can find the responses to that question in the book. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question. Ronald Salmon is asking, did the research reveal any post-Bedwardite movement since the death of Alexander Bedward and the scattering of his followers?
That's a good question. Good question. There are a number of persons who tried to emulate what Bedward did. And there seemed to have been some internal fraction, really, in the movement itself. Because even someone like Roman Henry, who was the secretary of the movement and very close to Bedward, at one time left the movement. I think he started his own thing, and then I think he came back to the movement. So no one, I think, had the kind of a charismatic leadership to maintain the movement as a united movement. I have not seen so far examples of fracturing, but I must also make the point as well that to really find material on Bedward really and the movement is difficult. It's difficult, okay? I have not yet seen additional document that describe post-1930 and the movement itself, what happened then. But I do know that the movement, in a sense, fractured. Different leaders who were appointed, some persons were not pleased with somebody who was leaders, and you had a lot of internal conflict. And as such, though, the movement eventually petered out. And people actually left and went to other churches, into other movements. By this time, now, Augustown had become numerically large, and the people are now going into other churches who want Bedwardites. So many of the churches are run, by the way, in Augustown's early years. A lot of them are Bedwardites who have gone over into other churches, right? And so the movement eventually disintegrated. But no one was able, from my understanding, was able to carry on what Bedward did, or to launch a counter movement, a Bedwardite movement, and be successful generally.
Okay, keep your comments coming in. We have been getting some vibrant comments from our viewers, right? At this moment, if there are no more questions, okay.
Oh, the fly issue. Yes, that's a very interesting question that I think most Jamaicans are concerned about. In the 1920s, it was said that Bedward had called the entire assembly to come and he would fly to heaven. Now, based on the report of the person who wrote the letter to the Bedwardites, Roman Henry, Henry's argument was that 1920 particular issue was one in which Bedward had now come to the conclusion that his time on earth was ending. And he wanted to have like a final meeting of all of his Bedwardites. So he said he wrote a letter to the Bedwardites saying, close some of your chapters for now and come to Augustown to celebrate with Bedward. If you have things that preventing you from coming, for example, you have cows and cattle, sell them and carry the money to Augustown. We keep it for you. And when you're ready to go back home, you get back your money, right? But the idea was not to fly home to heaven then, right? But to spend the time with Bedward as he felt that his time on earth was ending. And this seemed to be somehow correct because some of the leaders, like Skirvin, we spoke about earlier in the thing, said that he was part of the St. Thomas chapter and he was told to close that section in St. Thomas and come to Augustown. Right? So a lot of them came to Augustown. The media, however, then got wind of this. And because he was always talking about flying to heaven and, about that the media now turned that into an issue to say that, oh, it is that part that day he's flying to heaven. Now, if you understand biblical literature, by the way, and if you understand even African culture, because in 1850s and 60s, by the way, person like Monica Schuler argued that there was that strong view among many Africans in Jamaica in 1860 about flying to heaven. That it is said that if you were one of Africans who didn't eat salt, you could literally fly back to heaven. So that is something that is embedded in the local religious culture, in African culture. So when Bedward said, I'm flying to heaven, it doesn't necessarily mean that he will be flying to heaven literally, right? But the fact is, black people, based on black theology now then, okay, we are looking forward to going back home, wherever home is in Africa, right? So that was very strong in the teaching of both black people at that time, Africa at that time. But also religious language. That's why we have songs that fly away home to Jordan, fly away home. Very strong. But I think that was misinterpreted by the Gleaner who created this furor, this pandemonium about, my God, the man is literally going to fly to heaven. And I have a document by one of my missionaries who heads my church, who also wrote to his people in America saying, there's a crazy man in Jamaica saying he's going to fly to heaven. Literally fly to heaven, And so that now created resonance in the entire society, where it triggered this thing about this man flying to heaven, that people descend on Augustown to see, to witness this grand occasion. Now, the Bedouin said that was never so. All that it was is that Bedouin spent time with his people because he knew his time was coming to an end. That is why the manifestation into Kingston now then occurred like 4 months later. Bedward felt that his time on earth was coming to an end, and he wanted to spend time with his people, but it was misinterpreted now as that was the exact time then he would fly away, fly home.
Okay. Go ahead.
Could you comment on Bedward's relationship with the newspaper, specifically the Gleaner, as well as relationship with the established churches?
Yes. The question here is about Bedward's relationship with the Gleaner and with traditional churches. Yeah. The Gleaner, first of all, now, the Gleaner as a colonial newspaper then was very antagonistic to Bedward, right? And Bedward knew, so he played with them as well, and he dismissed them in his presence. And he called one in his presence after his first video, he said, get out, right? So it is quite clear that the colonial, the Gleaner, saw him as enemy number one, right? And so any story they could find to destroy Bedward, they did, right? But nevertheless, Bedward interviewed, allowed interviews to happen. And whenever he said, get out of my presence, go away, right? Because he knew he was. So a lot of what we see in the Gleaner and other places now was a clear attack on Bedward and his idea that this man is not fit to be a leader, plus he's a con man, right? Now, to clear that up now, even my missionary who I saw who wrote home about Bedward, even he got his information from the Gleaner himself, and the Gleaner called him a con man. Now, interestingly, the colonial government did an investigation into whether he was a con man or not, and they concluded the man barely making enough money from selling bottled water and from plates and saucers and cups, because in his rituals, you had to actually have a white cup and a white saucer, which is sold to his members. And they said that, look here, when you calculate how much money you can make from it, the man is not making any money. So even the government of Jamaica itself knew that Bedward was no con man. But because Bedward now cut across, with his black theology now, cut across the traditional Christian norms, now he was public enemy number one. And the Gleaner was one of those particular papers who targeted him and did everything to make him look very bad. Now, the traditional churches, now I must say then that even the traditional churches themselves had a problem with Bedward, and of course, because they lost members to Bedward, to the Bedwardite movement, right? And so the Roman Catholic bishop at that time, the Anglican, and not all bishop, not all Anglican church, other churches also made proclamations: we must not find our members actually going to any Bedwardite meeting. But guess what? A lot of those members in those churches were also baptized by Bedward and also went to the healing stream and had a bath as well in the healing stream. That's how influential Bedward was. But to cut to the chase, the point really is that Bedward disturbed colonial society, right? He didn't fit in the colonial society. And as such, therefore, then, he would have been the enemy of both church and state and the other organs of the state, like the law, right? All aimed at Bedward and bringing Bedward down, because he was, by this time, the most popular man and prophet in Jamaica.
Okay. We have our viewers on Zoom. Thank you so very much for tuning in. This is from Carlos. Carlos says, greetings everyone, I'm from Panama. I want to say that Honorable Alexander Bedward organized a community similar to the current speaker revealed about African liberated community in Panama. Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much for that comment, yes. Carlos. Mm-hmm. This is from Emiliana, hope I pronounced the name correctly. Many thanks for this kind invitation. I am Colombian, from the islands of San Andres and Providence Island, Western Caribbean. I was so happy to share this lecture. Since I was a child, I learned about fly mongoose. I think she meant sly mongoose. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even learned to sing it. Didn't know about the history of Mr. Bedward. It was so great and pleasant for me. And we have
Let me just make a comment to that one. That I did not know then that this song Sly Mongoose, by the way, now is over the entire Caribbean. If you go on the internet, there are different versions of Sly Mongoose done by the various countries, and I found that out just recently. So somehow that imagery that shaped early Jamaican community now went across the various Caribbean islands. And to the first question now then, what is interesting, I found was that even in the 1920 convention that Bedward had, they appointed what they call delegates to some of those islands. Mm-hmm. So with Cuba, Panama, right, because they've been appointed in that 1920 convention to say that we are sorry we didn't get a report from the delegate in, say, Costa Rica. We apologize. So it is quite clear this thing was so organized. And we could understand why, because remember now that many Jamaicans now travel to Central America in that time period to work. If he's the most popular prophet in Jamaica, then surely Bedwardites are going all across to these areas. So it's not a no-brainer to see why Bedwardism would also be very popular in some of these places as well.
Right. And you have elaborated on that, because Emiliana was asking, can the speaker elaborate more on Honorable Bedward's influence in Panama? Right. Okay. Any more comments? All right. Thank you so very much for sending in your comments, for sharing. And if you need further information, you can always feel free to contact us. You can visit our website at www.jnht.com. You can send us a tweet. You can go onto our Facebook page, and you can also send us a WhatsApp message, 6373. Thank you so very much, Dr. Goss, for such an electrifying presentation, and thank you, viewers, for sending in your comments and your feedback. There are several persons who have worked tirelessly to make this, our first virtual lecture, a success. First and foremost, let me thank the Creator for bringing us together to share and learn in this virtual setting. A big thank you to the JNHT's team in the Public Education, Public Relations and Communications Division, the Executive Office, the Research Unit, Corporate Services, Estate Management and Business Development, the Human Resource Department, and all the other members of staff who have contributed towards this morning's lecture. Our presenter, Mr. Dwayne Harris, for such an insight on Bedward's monuments. Thank you so very much for sharing. A special thank you to Dr. Goss for such an electrifying, engaging, and edutaining presentation. To our sister agency, Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, thank you so very much for providing technical support and doing this live streaming and recording for us. To Patselin Catering for providing refreshments. To our many viewers, this virtual lecture would not have been possible without you. So thank you for joining us and sharing. Thank you for your feedback, questions, and comments. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page. Until next time, walk good and continue to embrace your heritage, our heritage. Thank you.
The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust has the legal mandate to protect and preserve the nation's heritage. The organization legally declares or designates places and objects of historical value as national monuments or protected national heritage. It is our mission to inspire a sense of national pride through the promotion, preservation, and development of our cultural heritage, utilizing a highly motivated and qualified team. Visit the Jamaica National Heritage Trust at 79 Duke Street, downtown Kingston, or at www.jnht.com.